Hey, everybody, and welcome to The Better Show. I'm Ian Micatel.
I'm Darren Austin.
And I'm Mark Rogers.
And this week we are back on the YouTubes, number one. So that's bettershow.io/YouTube if you'd like to see the video version of the show. And we're back with a topic that I think is super timely, guys, and pretty cool. It's a reflective episode for us. It's what have we learned in the age of COVID, either working from home or just whatever other ramifications you may have dealt with and observed in this. What are we in now? Like 6-8 weeks of this, essentially?
Yeah. When did we? I gotta remember when we started going into lockdown. Because we were earlier here, and Mark, you were a little later than I think we were, right?
Yeah, we had social distancing. We've probably been doing social distancing for maybe 5 weeks now, and we've been in lockdown for 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've been in it for a while, and we're going to share today some of what we have reflected on, and we're trying to bucket it into a few different, categories, right?
Yeah, it's like a whole different experience. Like it's a different experience personally. It's a different experience with work, socially. Like there's just all of the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, at the top of the show, we like to give people some other options in case this is not, you don't want to pick up what we're putting down, as we say. And so if you're not, one thing we'll let you know is you could call in and just let us know that this is a garbage topic. Like this is something. Why did you guys do this? If you'd like to call in and harass us, you can do that at 1-971-333-8007. You could also send us an email, hi@bettershow.io, or just hit us up on the socials. That's Instagram or Twitter, at The Better Show is where you can find us on there. We actually had a super, super nice review just come in on the show.
That was really cool. I saw that.
They're like little dopamine hits for us on the show. So you can always do that. Either praise or like I said, harass. It's either one is fine with us.
Praise is good. Yeah. Praise is good.
Praise is good. We respond positively to praise.
Yes, we do.
I would love if people want to either on the socials or email or phone, go check out this YouTube video that we're just recording. Ian just got a brand new webcam. He's looking super professional. Seriously. I think both Darren and I are having pretty serious webcam envy right now.
And you can't buy one anywhere. There's nowhere to buy a webcam.
Darren, I know some secret places. I'll hook you up after the show.
Really?
Yeah, I got some insight.
Am I gonna have to violate social distancing? How's that gonna work?
I know a guy.
I know a guy.
Yeah. So go check out the YouTube video and give us opinions about whether we should all get Ian quality webcams.
All right.
Oh, the answer is definitely yes.
And we didn't actually, I'm just noticing, we didn't put it in our show notes, a non-COVID related episode for people. But if you are interested in COVID even more, let's just go the other way this week. You can hit up our COVID playlist. And it's bettershow.io/COVID, COVID. And we're kind of stringing together all the related episodes that may help you, keep you informed, keep you engaged during this time of craziness, guys, really.
And there's also, I will say, there's episodes in there that are really about taking a break from the whole COVID situation. There's recommendations on documentaries, on books, on podcasts. Okay. So there's things in there that are, if you just don't need any like COVID news, there's things that are about that you can make use of at home without it being all about the virus.
Love it.
Actually, on a side note on that, a friend of mine recently shared with me that he was, everybody's doing projects around the house or whatever when they've got free time. He went through all of his passwords and he's got a password manager, Dashlane. He went through, and Dashlane will give you a rating on how good your password security is. He went through every single one of his passwords and regenerated a brand new crazy cryptographic password. He's got a different one for every site, and he's got 100% like perfect protection. He's like, yep, I've been wanting to do this for like 6 years now.
That was my question. Wow. How far down the to-do list do you think he got to hit that? Like that is just,
I don't know, but I'm gonna go
level.
Do that too, because my rating is not so good on that. So I need to give it a little love.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's dive in, guys. We have a few different categories, as I mentioned at the top of the show, that we're going to run through today if you're listening. I'm going to give you an overview real quick, and then we'll dive into the first one. So we're going to talk about what has been the hardest thing for us personally, for Darren, March, and I during this whole period. Then we're going to move into what's been the most surprising thing for us personally. And then, because it seems so doom and gloom, what has been the silver lining? And I actually went and looked up the definition of silver lining last night when we were prepping, just to make sure I had it right in my head.
Cloud, it's right? Great cloud.
Yeah, because it's, everybody throws that term around. And then we're going to move into kind of outside of us, right? So in the world, what's been the most surprising thing? What's been the most heartwarming thing we have seen? And then March and I are going to finish up with a few random observations that we just didn't fit into the buckets.
It's our just little random show collection.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive in. So what's been the hardest thing for us personally? I'll kick it over to you, March, to kick us off.
Yeah, the hardest thing for me has been, I feel like I have been feeling a lot more stress than normal, but I can't quite figure out where it's coming from. And that means it's really hard to do anything about it. You know what I mean? It feels like almost like there's a background radiation of stress. It's like I can feel it in the air. And I think my hypothesis is it's like work is 10% more stressful. Being confined in my house all day is a little bit more stressful. That makes relationships a little bit more stressful. We're in the middle of this global crisis and the level of uncertainty is super high. So I think it's just like everything is just a little like it's another quarter in the jar of stress. But that means that like I can't, it's easier for me when I'm like, oh, that's causing me stress. I'm going to go address that. And instead what I'm having to do about it. There's nothing to do about it. Right. And so, and that's stressful as well.
Yeah. Right.
So that thing of like, there's just this accumulating, it feels like the sea level of stress for me is rising. I don't feel like I'm in control of it. And I know, and our whole show is about this, I know the things to do to deal with it are exercise and sleep and nutrition and social engagement. And I'm doing those things, but it does feel like I wish there was a thing I could go do that would fix it. You know what I mean?
I know a guy, March.
You do?
No, what I was going to say, though, was actually more humorously, and especially if you're watching on video, you'll get a chance to see this on a weekly basis. The stress level is literally rising on my head as my hair continues to grow without a haircut. And
that's why I'm wearing the hat, baby.
I mean, like I've gone into Twitter. Like, this is a thing for the male population. We don't know how to handle this whole no haircut situation. And all the women out there just like laughing at us because they're like, we deal with this.
It's going to be funny. I feel like we should everybody should get together before you have the haircut, and everybody should just rock those terrible haircuts, like the long hair that's like all out of sorts and everything. I think we should do that. That should be a celebration.
I think you're going to find three categories of people afterwards in terms of their hair. There's going to be people who just let it go wild. They're full like Robinson Crusoe on the desert island.
Pretty sure I'm heading there.
There's going to be the people who just said declared hair bankruptcy and shaved their heads. And there's going to be the third category, which is someone in their home watched a YouTube video about cutting hair.
Yeah.
And then practiced on them.
Yeah.
So do you guys remember the Flowbee?
No.
Do you guys know what the Flowbee is?
I will
put a link to it in the show notes. It was in the 1980s. There was a thing that they sold on infomercials called the Flowbee, and you hooked it up to your vacuum cleaner, and it had little blades, and you kind of like you could cut your hair. It was supposed to be the end of the barbershop, right? Because you could just kind of like it would suck your hair up, and it would cut your hair evenly and give you the same haircut every time. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was how they cut hair on the space shuttle, by the way, is using the Flowbee. And 80s.
I mean, we're sorry going down this rabbit hole of hair stuff, but like just yesterday,
Mark's
just showing Flowbee.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Do you want to hear a little bit of Flowbee audio?
Please.
Yes, I really do.
Why? Because it really works.
Proper suction is the key to getting great-looking haircuts with no cleanup.
Yeah. There it is.
Proper suction is the key.
That's amazing.
So if you had to describe this, Darren, for our podcast listeners, if you had to describe it, what is this machine?
So this looks like so it's an attachment to the end of your vacuum cleaner hose. It's kind of black and yellow, kind of like DeWalt power tools, if you can imagine what those look like. And what it does is it is sort of sucks your hair in through this plastic rectangular, I don't know, tube, for lack of a better term there. And there's little blades on the end of it that just trim your hair off in a nice, even, even cut.
It's a machine that tries to eat your hair. And the only thing that stops it is there's this plastic thing that stops it from like it becoming an industrial accident. Like it looks like an incredibly bad idea.
Yeah,
like
this is as good as the time that we saw the sauna in the suit. Do you remember that one, Marsh? You're supposed to be ordering that and testing it.
Sauna.
Oh,
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's me. Too much stress, not enough sense of control, and there's nowhere really to go with it. So that's what's been hard for me. How about you, Ian?
Mine has been it's been really hard for me to kind of create boundaries between work and personal time. And, I put in way more hours at work since this whole thing started. And it's sort of been by design, but also by accident. We for context, March and I happen to work on the same product at Microsoft. It's this whiteboard thing. People need a whiteboard right now, digital whiteboard, for remote work and learning. And so there's unprecedented kind of scale and need, and people are learning how to use this thing, and we got to help them. And and that's a very real thing. But at the same time, there's definitely this thing going on, which is like, I mean, you're looking at it on the video right now. Like, I'm at work right now, even though it's a Saturday and we're recording our personal podcast. Like, this is the same place I would do my job, and I might even, peek at some things. There's no break. There's no physical delineation of places and times anymore. And we talked about this with John Zaratsky on the recent episode when I interviewed him, about how make time, delineation of time is another thing. It's not just about making more time. It's about delineating your time so you feel like you have separation of work and play. And we all used to get that for free by driving somewhere every day to work. I know Marsh has been dealing with this remote thing more than us, but he used to have that for many, many years. And then that just goes poof one day, and we're left with how do you make this work, right? Like, what is the delineation now? So that's been the hard part for me. It's just creating that boundary between work and play, and not letting it kind of take over your life, not letting it become an unhealthy imbalance, not having burnout, all the typical things that we talk about. But, also just me being a go-getter, like wanting to put in a little extra, but not wanting it to kind of take over too, right? Like, that's another hard thing. It's like, how do you push? Like, I would love to do an episode in the future. It's like, how do you push in times of your life without pushing it too hard? It's like when I get on my Peloton and I do a HIIT workout, and I know, okay, today I'm pushing, but I know that the next workout is a recovery. Right. What's that in life, right? Like, what's the equivalent of that in life, and how do you set that up, and how do you make that go? Because
and the ebb and flow of those things helps too. Like you said, like this one's going to be hard, the next one's going to be easy. I understand where it's coming from.
Yeah. And you know what? That kind of maybe leads into maybe something March didn't mention, but I'm sure it adds to the stress levels, which is none of us know really when is this ending? When's the light at the end of the tunnel? We're pretty sure there it is, thank goodness, but we don't really know when and how and at what scale and where. And, there's just so many open-ended questions still. And so I think that's a big piece of it, is that, if you're pushing hard, if you're, let's say, I have it easy, guys. I shouldn't even, I'm not complaining by any means, but like, let's say you're a healthcare worker, right? Like, what's the end there? When are you done?
Oh, yeah,
especially
them.
So anyway, that's been my thing. It's the creating the boundaries. How about you, Mr. Darren? What's been hardest for you personally?
I woke up yesterday, and I didn't know whether it was Wednesday or Saturday. And that was the most weird thing in the whole world. Like, right? Like, it's one thing to go, is today Thursday or is today Friday? No, is today's Saturday. I didn't know. It was so far away from, like, I had no idea. The day, there's just no distinction. Yeah. Like Sunday morning used to have a feel, right? And Saturday morning had a feel. And Friday night had a feel. And none of the feels, all the feels are gone. They're all different. They're all different now. So that's kind of weird. And I even noticed it during the day. So like the times of day are weird for me. Like my morning, I come down and I get my coffee, and that's a little bit similar, but it's also a little different now too. But I find myself working, I've been having lunch at 3:45 in the afternoon because like and then by the time I'm done with lunch, I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I've got to go back to work, but I mean, there's just a little bit more to do. And then I want to get a workout in. But by the time I try to jump on my bike or something, like the sun's going down. And I'm like, what just happened? Like, is it Wednesday? Is it Saturday? Is it noon? Is it midnight? I am completely.
Where am I? Who am I? What does it all mean?
I feel like I'm in some kind of twilight zone from time. I can't figure it out. So anyway, all of that to say, my routine's gone. Like my routine's just all out of whack, and that I rely on my routine. My routine keeps me like sane, and my routine's all out of whack. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move into most surprising thing for us personally. And March, I'll let you start again because you had one about how quickly the world is changing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've just been like, I keep thinking about what I was thinking about the world and what I thought 2020 was going to be like back in December. And it seems when I think back that I'm thinking about like someone else's life. It's so different. And I'm really surprised how quickly the world has changed, and how before this whole thing came up, like it wasn't like we were going, oh, I wonder if there's going to be a pandemic, maybe not this year. Like it just wasn't a part of the conversation. We were talking about climate change and when our car is going to get electric and who's going to win the Democratic primary in the United States, and like lots of things to talk about. But this was not it. And then all of a sudden, in a matter of weeks, it feels like the whole world has changed.
Unless you were Bill Gates or...
But it wasn't even part of the conversation in like early February. It wasn't even part of the conversation like mid-February. It was just like, boom.
Oh, like here's a good example. All three of us were on this trip in London in late January, internationally. Did any of us bring this up? Like we talk about like for folks listening, like we basically do the podcast when we get together all the time, just offline, right? And we had long conversations over dinner and drinks, and this never came up.
No.
I'll tell you the other thing. Marty and I went to Mardi Gras this year. We were on one of the floats in one of the crews, and we were aware.
First off, that's just amazing.
It was pretty cool. But like we're conscious of what's happening. We were Seattle was one of the original places where the outbreak was, and I remember we thought, well, is it all right to travel? I guess, and it was like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, we don't show symptoms. It's not an issue. We're leaving the area, not going to an area that's a hot zone. And then, like all of a sudden, like I don't know, last week, New Orleans starts to blow up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Mardi Gras was the play."
You said how much seems inevitable now. What do you mean by that?
Well, so there's two things. So like we were back in January. We were talking about, and there was a lot of news. We work in tech, and so there's a lot of conversations about are these industry conferences going to take place, or are they going to be canceled? And it seemed like a really like, I don't know. It's kind of like people are like, it's a thing you could debate about. Maybe not. Maybe some of them will be canceled.
Not until May or June.
Yeah. And now it's the idea that those conferences would have happened seems laughable. It seems insane.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's this thing where we've all been changed mentally. Like the lens we're viewing the world has shifted. And now it almost seems inevitable. Now we're like watching 5-year-old videos of Bill Gates going, oh yeah,
told you so.
I'm with Bill on this one.
And hindsight's always 2022, right?
Yeah, but that's it. And so there's this sort of combination of I can't believe how quickly it's changed, and also I can't believe how much my brain is like, yep, this is just we should have seen this one coming. This is just an obvious thing that could have happened.
Well, you know what?
That's been the most surprising.
Yeah. So I mean, Darren, yours kind of builds on that because you said you're surprised by how much we still don't know. You want to talk about that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much we don't know about this virus, right? Like, there's not adequate amounts of data. Well, first of all, I mean, not to point fingers, but there was not a lot of data coming out of China right? And the data that was coming out of there was a bit massaged, to put it lightly. But even like since the virus has been in Europe and in the United States, there's just not a lot of data for us to understand what's going on. It's like I mean, there's some promising vaccines and stuff, but there's a lot of misinformation. And what's fascinating is it's even like the people that you trust completely, Dr. Fauci, right? Like that guy deserves a medal at the end of this. I mean, a week and a half ago, it was like, do not wear a mask. A mask is not helpful in public. This week, hey, you should probably get a mask. It's good, you know, and I'm thinking the whole time they're saying things about masks. I mean, I'm not a medical professional or anything. I'm like, it can't hurt. I mean, I'm not going to take an N95 mask away from a first responder, but like if I got a bandana, that probably can't hurt, right? But at the time, even the experts were like, no, that's going to give you a false sense of security. It doesn't do anything. It comes in from around the sides. Now, masks apparently are okay. So I think it's an interesting place that we're in where we don't even have any grounding in, like there's nothing that you know for sure. It's like, oh, we're going to learn some more tomorrow and we're going to learn some more the next day. And we'll just figure it out as we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, totally. So how about you, Ian? What has been the most surprising or shocking thing for you?
Mine was a work from home thing. So I love how when I'm working from home and everyone else is now, right? I don't feel like I'm an outsider when I'm doing it. And I don't have any FOMO. I don't have any fear of missing out by not being at the office, right? Because there's nothing to miss out on. No one else is. And I'm way more productive due to the lack of travel time. But even more, like that's the obvious one. The one that's a little deeper and more interesting that I realized is my particular role has me going between a lot of meetings and then a little bit of office time to actually do core work. And what that means is that I have to switch between my desktop and my laptop and my phone a lot in a typical workday. And that context switching, that device switching is a way bigger tax than I realized. And and then on the flip side, by being at my desktop 24/7 now, meaning if a meeting's coming up in 10 minutes, the meeting starts, I stay at my desktop. Nothing changes, right? If I am working on a long email or a project, I just keep going, right? Now, obviously, like I might shift it to the side for a second and pay attention to the meeting, but it's not the context switching. I'm not shutting down a device, loading a new one. Oh, now I got to get this file online and load it on this other machine.
Or I got to get my laptop and walk to the next conference or something.
Oh, and now the laptop's not charged and da-da-da-da-da. Like, so the point is a couple things here. Just like I feel way more productive, which is a great feeling. And it's spurring me on to do more and to push harder. You know, it's kind of like, you know, I just had this sensation last night. I had a good recovery day. I jumped on the Peloton and I chose an Alex Toussaint ride, who's like the hardest trainer. And he's busting my butt on this ride.
Baseball. All the Peloton people are like, "Oh, Alex."
Yeah,
the rest of us are like,
you know, if you're watching, you know. Sidebar: this guy is like mega famous now because all the athletes that are literally can't train with their trainers, they're all getting Pelotons and working with this guy. And so ESPN did a whole feature on him because he's training like, you know, all the top athletes right now remotely, which is crazy. But the point was, I got on the bike, I did a really hard ride. He pushed me super hard, but I had a good recovery day, so I was ready for it. And it like, because you know when you're doing a workout and like you're pushing hard, but you're doing it, like it's right. So that is happening at work for me. Like I'm pushing hard, but things are happening because the environment's helping me in a weird way.
Nice.
So anyway.
Well, so there was this 2-year Stanford study about 3 or 4 years ago into, you know, the effects of working from home. And they concluded that for many different types of jobs that you can do from home, that people's productivity jumped essentially by they got an extra day a week of work out of it. So it went up by more than a fifth, up more than 20%. And everybody's sort of satisfaction and happiness went up as well, because the leading cause of unhappiness around work is commuting. I will say, and I think it's great that you're feeling that way. You know, I think a lot of people are, it's probably they're not really working from home. They are at home during a crisis trying to work.
Yeah, they're managing kids, they're managing stress.
Kids.
Yep.
They don't, maybe, you know, people in small homes or homes where they didn't set up to work from home, they're like perched at the kitchen table on a wooden chair, like trying to get their work done all day. So I am a huge proponent of working from home. And I'm glad that you're sort of seeing and feeling that benefit. And also, I kind of wanted to remind people who are like maybe feeling bad because they're not enjoying working from home or they feel less productive. This is a super weird version of working from home. This is and that quote about this is not working from home. This is being at home during a crisis and trying to work.
Yeah.
So if you are struggling, if you are struggling with it, just cut yourself some slack. This is a really weird and unusual situation.
Well, and that's why I wanted to point it out though as a surprising thing is that so while it's a hot common take to be like it's a crisis time. I've seen this on Twitter a lot. So it's abnormal. I get that. The flip side of that though is there is a upside to that, which is everybody is working from home at the same time, right?
Sure.
And that will go away when we go back to normal. So you won't get that. But that I was trying to point out like one positive of the everybody working at home at the same time is like there's no FOMO anymore and we're all on the same page, and I like that.
Yeah.
You know what? Like one thing I told my wife, what's been really heartening to see? I love seeing an all hands exec meeting where like EVPs and super senior people are like they got their webcam on and it's just their house.
I do too. I love that.
It's super nice. Like it makes me feel like I'm closer to them than I would be if they were on the stage in the fancy room with the lights and microphones, right? Anyway.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a lot more human.
All right.
Let's talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about silver linings. So, right. Ian, you're on the positive train. Why don't you keep going on the positive train?
Well, I've just been shocked, like the positive environmental impacts of this, guys. Like, I mean, could this be a turning point for future habit change is my question. And I'm going to talk about this later in terms of like, I'm now talking about it in terms of you as an individual thinking about this, right? Are you going to just drive less when this all starts? Are you realizing you don't need to be doing what you were doing before? Are you going to ask your boss to work at least one day a week from home and cut your commute time by 20% per week, right? Like there's so many little things to this. Are you going to realize you didn't need to take travel for vacations as much? I was talking to my mom last night and she basically said that. She's like, back to basics. Like we don't need to be traveling so much. Like I looked at my calendar and I remember Darren, I'm not to pick on you, but we chatted doing some show planning right before the new year. And you looked at your calendar and you're like, guys, this year is nuts. I'm traveling every month.
Every single month there was something going on.
How many people are going to look at this and go, is this really what we need to be doing? Is this the way that it needs to be? And I think for a lot of people, the answer is going to be no.
Back to basics is a really good theme. I mean, I feel like that'll happen a lot too. I'm not getting my hopes up that the air is going to stay clean, forever or whatever. But I mean, I think that there's going to be some changes. It'll be nice.
Yeah, I definitely think that like in the arguments for for reducing carbon emissions and trying to improve the air quality, I think people will be able to say now, here's a really concrete example of, yes, I mean, that was a really hard way to do it, but look what can be achieved.
Yeah.
What are there's kind of there was a thing that happened in the environmental movement in the early 70s where NASA released a photo of the Earth. And it was the first time that humans had ever seen the planet that they've lived on from space, where you could see the whole thing, the big blue sphere.
The big blue. Yeah.
And that became the icon for the environmental movement. And I think it really impacted and influenced a lot of people because it really was the first time where you could concretely conceptualize we're all in the same egg basket here. Like it's not, you can't, the environment doesn't stop at the edge of your house. It doesn't stop at the edge of your country borders. We're just, this is all we got. And if we screw this one up, there isn't another one around. Like Mars is a pretty sad alternative. And so that blue marble was really powerful. And I wonder if this will become a touchstone for, we don't want to do that to our economy, but we've been able to improve air quality globally by 20, 30, 40% in a few weeks. Like it's not hopeless. It's not impossible. It's not inscalable to be able to address these problems. We just have to do it together. So I'm with you. I'm hopeful about that.
Bounce back. It also shows you the bounce back, right? Like, I mean, clearly these are drastic circumstances, but like, it does give you the sense that, hey, if we make a few changes, even seemingly small ones, we can make an impact, which is kind of cool.
Well, March, you were surprised, or the silver lining for you was about solidarity in our communities, and I was thinking that that might be a good follow-on to what we just talked about with the global, everybody looking at the same egg basket.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, this for me has really been a silver lining, and this has happened both sort of locally in my personal community, but also like I you know, I'm home having lived in Ireland now for almost 2 years. And I like it, but I've never really been particularly like attached or patriotic to a country. I do like to conceive of myself as my identity as like a citizen of the world. But the Irish people coming together and addressing this, and our politicians have been really great and responsible and thoughtful and clear communicators. And you really feel like literally our prime minister is also a doctor, and he is volunteering in a hospital 1 shift a week.
Wow, that's wonderful. You gotta love that.
Yeah, and it's a really strong sense of like we're all in this one together. And unlike say a war, which is I think the other kind of experience where that gives people that feeling, there is no other human enemy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's a very pure, clean, uncomplicated feeling of solidarity. Like we really do just like there's no ethical dilemma about beating this virus, right? It's not like we're like, oh, we hope the Russians love their children too from the Sting song.
Right.
Like we don't care. Like we want to exterminate the virus, and we're all in it together, and we're equally vulnerable and we're equally human.
I noticed that people in our neighborhood are more friendly. People say hello when you walk past them, whereas before they may not have. Right? I see a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm doing that too. Yeah,
I'm getting a lot of personal benefits. Like I'm spending a lot more time with Marty, my wife. I'm walking the dog every single day. Like Maggie. Let me tell you, like the conspiracy theory of this whole thing is that all the dogs got together and said, "All right, we're going to release this virus because they're the big beneficiaries of this whole thing."
Oh, yeah.
And Maggie is gonna hate me when I go back to work. She's gonna like.
It's true.
She's gonna be heartbroken. But this is good.
Do you know that all of the animal shelters are empty?
All of them, because we're on the list for rescue dogs, and they've basically said, "Sorry,
isn't that crazy?
You're not gonna have one for a long, long time."
Yeah, it's like the three things that everyone has in their life now is a pet, a strong desire to bake bread, and garden.
What is up with the baking bread? Like, apparently, I found out last night from some friends, yeast and flour are gone from the grocery stores.
They've been out of our supermarkets for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a nurturing thing you can do in your own house, right? It's a sense of control. It's a sense of feeding the people that you love. Like I'm all about. It's back to basics. It is back to basics again.
All right. Well, let's move into worldly views. We've talked a little bit about it, but that was some of our personal takes. So for most surprising thing we've seen in the world right now, March, kick it off for us. What's been most surprising in the entire world?
Yeah. So to me, I remember back in like January where we were hearing these news headlines from China, like from Wuhan, and the Chinese military just went into the city and shut it down, like full quarantine, 60 million people stay in your houses. And I watched that and I said, there's no way they're going to be able to do that in a Western democracy. Like this, there's one of those things where a centrally planned, top-down, highly sort of authoritarian government has a lot of problems in terms of freedoms and rights, but they are very good at getting stuff done very quickly. And I thought, we're just never going to be able to do it. People are going to revolt. And
they built like 2 hospitals overnight, right?
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Their logistics are insane. But what I was really surprised by was nearly all of these Western countries, with 1 or 2 exceptions, really just said, "Yep, okay," and like they just announced it on the news, and everybody stayed indoors. Like, and if they didn't have to have tanks on the road,
it's not been perfect, but it's been really good.
I don't know if this is a weird take for me, but I wasn't on that bandwagon of the Western democracy. Because just think about it logically. Like, if you have a brain and you realize this is going to kill me, I don't need the government to tell me stay home. Like, I don't want to die. So I don't it doesn't matter if I'm in a democracy or not. Like, I'm a person who likes to live. Like, I don't
but think about
really
it this way. It's all the young kids on the basketball court. It's like, oh, this is an old person's disease. I'm going to go play basketball. But in fact, it's like you're going to be able to spread this to people that are vulnerable, right? So it's requiring people to take an action that is not necessarily in their own self-interest, but in the interest of the greater good, which is why I think you get the authoritarian people that
and I also it's happened.
Yeah. No, it's been good. Kudos.
So I'm just surprised to the degree to which, without having tanks in the streets, people are just following these, which are really restrictive, and like literally there are 13 million unemployed people in the US because of this order. And all of those people are, no one wanted that, right? Like none of those people wanted it. None of their managers or business owners wanted it. And yet they all chose to have that happen rather than go against these stay-at-home orders.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's that level of intent. Surprise. I'm glad.
Well, Darren, that was your surprising thing, was the unemployment stuff. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the economics junkie, and to be honest with you, like it has been, like I think I shared, like at the end of February, early March, when we started doing lockdowns around here, or stay at home or whatever. It was, I started thinking about the economic implications, and I got really, really freaked out. And it didn't show up on a global scale until just in the last couple of weeks. But like literally the jobless claims, like 17 million people out of a job in the US alone. Like Europe the same way, like literally swaths of Italy and Spain just shut down. In the amount of the economic impact this is having has been incredible. I cannot imagine another scenario. I don't think there's ever been a scenario in modern life, and I mean when I mean modern life, I mean all the way back to the Dark Ages, where there has been this level of economic disruption. Not a world war, not smallpox, nothing. Like this is it. So it's wild. It's something that it's like a story that I'm not sure, I don't think anybody knows how the story ends. We're sort of writing it as we go, which is where I get a little bit of optimism about people coming together. I feel like I hope at the end of this that we come out of this coma, and we come out of it with a little bit of a sense of solidarity. So What about you, Ian? What's surprising for you?
Yeah, I was going to say mine was kind of following up on that. I've noticed this thing. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but people are prioritizing socialization based on essentially the depth of their relationship instead of their geography. And what I mean by that is typically people are socializing a lot with their coworkers or people that happen to live near them. And when you can't go out of your house, who's the first person that you dial? Who's the first person that you do the phone call with? It's not your neighbor.
Friends
it's not your coworker. It's your family. It's mom. It's the uncle. It's the cousin. It's the sister, the brother, the Better Show co-host, whatever it is, right? Like it's the people that you have a depth of relationship with that is really meaningful, not just who is convenient. And there's a Wait But Why article I'll link to in the show notes that talks about this in like 10 different types of relationships. And they call it tier 2 friends, which would be the ones that are based on your geography or near you, versus tier 1 friends, which are, the people at the top of your mountain, as the pictures in the article will show you.
Right.
I've just been really struck by that. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's healthy. I think it's a silver lining, but also just surprised me. Like I didn't really expect. Oh, thank you, March. He pulled up the mountain from the Wait But Why article. This is your friendships. And so you're at the top there, and then you have tier 1, your closest friends in green, and strangers super far away. But then you had this weird kind of uncanny valley almost of your tier 2, pretty good friends. Your tier 3, not really friends, as he calls them. And then your acquaintances at the bottom of the mountain that can like shout up to you, and you see them once in a while. The article is great. It goes in depth on all this, but I don't know. I think it's a really interesting thing that I've been surprised to see, and yeah.
All right, that's a good thing too.
Let's move into the positives. Let's talk about heartwarming things we've seen in the world at a macro level. March, what's been good for you?
For me, there's been this like almost 180 in the conversation about technology, where in technology conversation, really, there's been this techlash for the last few years. We're part of that conversation as well about being about trust and privacy. was also about this perception that technology was the thing that was isolating us from each other, right? That it was getting in the way of real, honest connection.
Which is true.
Now, which can be true for sure, yeah. But I think now everybody is seeing this huge benefit to this investment that we made. I love the internet. I'm so glad to be alive at a time when it emerged, where we built it. And I think because there's been such complicated things going on in terms of how it's being used and how people are exploited and things with privacy, that it's very easy to lose sight of this extraordinary thing that we as a species have created and are now benefiting from, right? Because it is the thing keeping us connected. And the
could you imagine doing this without it?
The engineering? No. Well, I mean, I could, but it would be terrible, right?
I mean, it'd be crazy. You'd be crawling the walls.
We might, and I mean this seriously, there might genuinely be food shortages all over the world if we didn't have the internet, because it is the logistical backbone of the thing. We're all staying in our houses using our phones to order food. And that entire chain from like a farmer to you is run on the internet.
That's a good point.
So it is, anyway. So the thing that's most heartwarming for me is, even though we didn't see this coming, even though afterwards we're going to be talking a lot about what we should have done to prepare for it, we have built a world that could withstand this.
Right.
And that was not true 20, 30 years ago. This would have been much worse. None of us, we would all be unemployed 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about you, Darren?
That's me.
Did you guys see all the videos where there was a day last week, and maybe it's been a couple of days now, where different communities will just pause at a certain time at night, and everybody goes outside and applauds, and they're blinking their lights, and everybody's cheering and everything. And there was a video. You guys may have shared this with me. John Krasinski from The Office did SGN, Some Good News. And he showed the video of the police officers outside the hospital with their sirens and everything. I thought that was really, really cool. Like, people pausing to thank the medical community on the front line. I thought that was really good. And
it's heartwarming.
And where I think that goes, I think is rather interesting too. Like, I think we come out of this with a sense of, like, I'm going to reassess some of the roles and the people in our society and our economy that do a job that can often be thankless or seemingly rewardless from like a monetary perspective. Like, nurses just probably don't make enough money, right? For the work that they're doing now. They're pulling us out of the hot water here. I think it's just a good thing to reassess the value of some of the roles in community, in our community. And this was a good heartwarming thing. It's a good first step. Let me put it that way. How about you, Ian? Because you have a similar idea, right?
Yeah. I asked my wife this, and her first answer was the global growing empathy that the entire world, anybody who's a parent, just got for the roles that teachers play.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that has children at home during this is, you may have understood, right, what, like, the parameters of how it all works. You may have teachers in your family. You may have taught before even. I think it's different to understand something than to live it. And what we have all done is basically had a global, almost like homeschooling effort for a few weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Where every parent is mostly failing at that and going, oh my gosh, that's hard to do my job plus do that. And that's every teacher, because every teacher's going, yeah, I have to teach, and then I'll go home at night and prepare some content and do multiple jobs. Like, it's not the simple, like, just show up and 9 to 5 it.
Right.
And so I think that's going to be really, really good going forward. I think that is really going to change the kind of conversation about education globally, about, anything related to it. It's a new depth of level of people going, you know what, maybe I'm going to join my PTA. Like that, it turns out probably could be a valuable thing. I definitely can't go teach the class, but maybe I will help where I can.
And I think you picked a great word, empathy. I think that is the heartwarming thing, is to see so much more empathy for all different areas of life and other people. I think that's a wonderful thing.
All right. Well, let's wrap up. March and I both had a couple other random observations that didn't fit into these buckets necessarily, and we wanted to make sure we got in. Let's just bounce them back and forth, March. So kick it off for us. What did you have?
All right. Have you noticed that everyone has become an amateur epidemiologist overnight?
Yes, I was going to say that.
Like, how is it that
biology?
All of a sudden, yeah, that's right. We're like having arguments about the interpretation of the or not value. Yeah, and everybody knows what we're talking about, right? And like even terms like social distancing and flattening the curve, debates about the effectiveness of masks. Like, what is happening with our world right now? Everybody is just consumed, like just absorbed so much information so quickly.
If your name is Dr. Rhonda Patrick, Dr. Peter Attia, or any of the like social media doctors in the world, man, you are a busy person right now and probably stressed, but wow, is this good for your long-term business?
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Well, one of mine was just an office thing. And this really hit me, guys. And I'm sure, March, you have already realized this because you're doing the work from home thing. I was walking yesterday and I realized the office is not for me. And I don't mean that it's not for me as in like I'm not into an office. I mean, Ian. It is an office is not built for me, the worker. It is a construct of the company to benefit them. It does not benefit me. Like, think about the fact that how happy we all are when we don't drive. It really was. Like, I was walking. It was a beautiful day. I'm with my wife, and I'm like, that whole thing is not. It's they've twisted it in the recent decades, right? We put beanbag chairs. We have food and all these things. It's not for me. It's for them. It's for them to feel more efficient.
And I would argue that it's not even good for them. They're just afraid. They think they need the factory to put all of the people in to watch to make sure they make the widgets. And it's such it's 100 years out of date. And it's certainly since we have the internet, it's completely irrelevant. And like that same study, right? The one that was like you get an extra day of work if you work from home. Yeah. The benefit to the company is $2,000 a week in rent per employee if you don't have an office building. Because commercial real estate is an order of magnitude more expensive than personal real estate.
There's a lot of people predicting that we're going to see a major crash in commercial real estate in the next few years because of this moment in time where there's so many more people realizing, hey, I can work from home. So many more companies going, hey, this actually can work for us too. We could save money on rent. There's a growing theory that commercial real estate is going to take a huge hit. So we'll see what happens. It'll be
Marsh, you had one on kind of time scale of the disruption.
Yeah, there's these two things happening, and I think this is maybe natural in any crisis where a sense of time gets distorted, right? And it's kind of like the days are long, but the weeks are short. And, you know, when we think about, and particularly I think just because this is how you manage a policy like this, if you're going to do a lockdown, is you kind of say, we're going to lock down for 2 weeks. And then as you approach that date, you say, actually, we're going to lock down for another 2 weeks. And then when you approach that date, you say, we're actually going to lock down for another 2 weeks. Because you don't really want to say to people, either we're going to lock down until further notice, which is really what they have to do, because they have to wait for the numbers to change to make sure we're not destroying the healthcare systems. But when I hear the experts talking about like the course of a pandemic like this, they talk about it in terms of years, not weeks, right? Like, let's even think about the fact that, I mean, we're not going to be all in lockdown for 2 years, but there's going to be significant disruptions. Like, you know, in Washington State, where you guys are, they've already said schools are not, you know, it's April and they've said schools are not going to reopen before the end of the school year. Our Minister of Education said we don't know if schools are going to start again in September normally.
Oh, yeah, November. New York's already said October, I think.
Wow. Yeah, and, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's right. And like Bill Gates pointed out in an interview that, yes, we're probably about 18 months away from a vaccine, but that's 18 months away from we have a working vaccine that we know is safe in a test tube.
Yeah.
Now we need to make and deliver 7 billion doses. Like that is going to take some time. There's going to be entire countries that are going to be hard to get vaccinated. So even though we're probably not going to be
meantime.
Yeah, and it's probably means that we're not going to be locked in our houses for that entire time. But it's not going to be normal. There's going to be disruptions. There's going to be travel bans. There's going to be times when you're allowed back in, and then all of a sudden you're going to be told to go back and stay in your house for another couple of weeks. Probably all the way through, certainly through 2020, and probably into a good chunk of 2021. So that has been something that I've kind of been wrestling with in my head a little bit, because that's not an awesome thought.
Can I share another observation I had? I mean, it wasn't in the show notes, but this is something I was talking to somebody about the other day. Is I feel like that we need to begin planning our there needs to be a celebration at the end of this. There needs to be a parade. There needs to be some kind of celebration that marks our ability to sustain through this and come out the other side. And I was thinking about this, like, we need a plan for coming out of this coma, and it needs to be a thoughtful one that's grounded in medical science and what's appropriate. But then it has to be thoughtful about the economic impact, and it has to be thoughtful about the psychological impact. We do need a celebration at the end of this. We do need to mark this moment, even if it means we're coming out, slower than maybe all of us would like. It needs to be a celebration. So I would love to have a dialogue about that. It's I'd like to see the dialogue about that start. So
I'm reminded about VE Day at the end of World War II in London, right? The kind of like iconic footage. Churchill's announcing the victory, the end of the war over the radio. Everybody's like flooding the streets. It'll be tricky for us because there's going to be time, like probably the first time we'll want to have a parade. We still should only be like 2 meters apart. So it'll be a very spread out
that's
parade.
What's curious about. Yeah.
But I wonder if we'll have I totally agree that we should have like maybe a series of celebrations.
It's tricky too, because unlike a war, there's no all the parties involved.
The treaty.
Yeah,
right.
And all the parties involved, meaning all the countries in the world, aren't ending this at the same time. Like China's already back to normal, quote unquote, right? Like they're going back. They're celebrating now, and we're all like, when can we celebrate in the U.S.? And so it's going to be tricky. I think it maybe different areas will celebrate at different times. But
so, March, as you're playing the VE Day video, I'm looking at the crowd of people there, and I'm just like, so many germs.
Stop touching each other.
Bettershow.io/YouTube if you'd like to see the people. Okay. Well, I had one on social barriers. So I think the social barriers are breaking down for the whole working from home thing big time. The example I gave was it doesn't matter if cat, kid, or significant other comes in your video during a meeting. No one's like, it's not a big deal anymore. And no one's like, oh, now we're going to take 10 minutes and joke about the dog that came in or whatever, right? Like it's just like, nope, it's normal. Like that's life. Just keep moving on with the meeting. Like it's just how the things work, right?
Yeah.
In the old world, it was like, oh my gosh, like the whole meeting just falls down as soon as like somebody comes in your shot.
Or people are apologizing and stuff. Like something bad, something taboo thing has happened.
Yeah,
it's just not the case anymore.
It's just not a thing. March, you had one about spending time with friends.
Yeah, so this was just for me, and this relates to your point about like the tiers of friends. I have spent more time with friends during the lockdown than I had with some of them in the previous couple of years. I have a friend in Italy, who is on her own in a 10 square meter apartment in the middle of Italy and has been for weeks. And I would see her when she would come home. I would see her when she would come back to Ireland for a visit once, twice a year. I've been talking with her in a group Zoom call every week for the last 4 weeks. And now I'm like, why was I not hanging out with one of my friends? Because it's just so funny, the mental thing, right? Like
they're one click away. You realize that.
But we have these unconscious biases towards proximity, physical proximity, even though we don't need to anymore. I think that kind of leads into maybe one of your points, Ian, about remote work.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was saying that I think that, the three of us happen to work in tech. We happen to work on remote working stuff, this whole whiteboard thing I mentioned. I think for the longest time, we all thought that it was solely a tech problem. Like, oh, the technology is just not good enough. We got to make it better. And then we'll all work remotely one day, right? One day in the future when the tech is good. And it turns out it's not really only a tech problem. It's a people problem. It was the social norms. It was the all the stuff we've talked about. So I just don't. I think that we're gonna learn real quick that the tech's good enough for most people. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's just do it. You know. There was another one, kind of related on the tech thing that I wanted to mention. Anonymity. I can never say that. Anonymous.
Anonymity.
Like I'm not even going to attempt it. I think that it's going to become weird, more weird than it's ever been to be anonymous on the internet. And I think that authentic identity is going to become the new norm. And I think that the kind of, if you're not into this, if you're not into this stuff and you don't listen to this kind of stuff, like the general thesis has been Facebook was the only people to really try this at a global level. They got 1 billion people to sign up with their real identity, their real friends, their real picture. Twitter is the antithesis to this. Twitter is fake everything. You could, make up an identity and post publicly. And the general hot take, I think, in the tech backlash has been like, Facebook that whole connected thing isn't always that great. I think what we're learning is through different things. I'm going to give you a couple quick examples. Think about the whole e-gaming trend and how everybody now live streams their real video, their real face while they're playing the virtual reality game, right?
Right.
That is massive. That is what people want. They want to watch the human play the video game. They don't want to just watch the video game. They want to see a person. Yeah. And the same thing is happening, I think, and you're going to see it, whether it's Instagram live streams, whether it's everybody at work turning on their video cameras and getting them because now they're cheaper and they're better quality. And I think like when you go to work and you get on a call, right now, it's weird if you're the 1 or 2 people with the video on. That's weird. I think what's going to happen in the future is if you don't have your camera on, you're now the weird person. Like what?
Yeah,
what are you hiding?
That's the case. I hope that's the case.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one.
Totally with you.
Gotta say this one.
Yes.
I really this one. I'm just fascinated by. Okay, guys, pretend that you're Satya Nadella right now, CEO of Microsoft, or Tim Cook, CEO of Apple. You are in charge of essentially 100,000 plus people and giant companies. You claim, and I'm going to take them at their word. I have no reason not to believe they're true. They have said major statements, especially Microsoft, very, very recently, right before this, that we deeply care about the environment and the future of it, whether for economic reasons or moral reasons. Don't really care. But the point is you care in big ways, meaning these companies were putting up billions of dollars to help the environment. You now are sitting here in your, I like to think that they have those big, chairs where they spin around and like, mwahaha, right? Like they're in their chairs, right?
the Dr. Evil chair, I think is what you're describing.
Yeah, but I'm not implying that they're evil. They're very nice people. I really appreciate Tim Cook and Satya Nadella.
Yeah.
But you're sitting there and you're watching your company essentially run. And it hasn't fallen down. The stock hasn't plummeted on either company. They're making stuff. They're building things. They're supplying the whole world with technology. Do you sit there as a CEO and go, so do I really force 100,000+ people to start putting all that gasoline and pollution back in the air every week by making them drive to an office? Do I really do that if I actually care about the environment the way I claim that I do? And I really can't figure out how in their minds they could justify that.
Because they just got to be a balance, right?
Well, they just did the A/B test. Like, this is my final point. They did the A/B test right now. And the A/B test proved, as Mark said earlier, we are particularly in an industry where it's fine. It's fine. Like, yeah, there's going to be 5% of that workforce that needs to go back because they're doing server room stuff or whatever they do, sales, or whatever. I get that. But for 95% of the people, they don't need to be driving to an office. Give us $5,000, $2,000 each. Don't build a brand new campus at Microsoft for billions of dollars, right? Let us all have nice chairs at home that don't make our backs hurt, and have good ergonomic setups where we can manage our children in one area and not be distracted for, I just can't see how you're the CEO and you're like, no, I want everybody to start putting gas back in the air.
I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think it's a balance, right? I think there's some people that do work better in person. I think there's some jobs that are better together. But I also think you start with the people and you say, okay, am I going to force everybody to come back? No. What I'm going to do is I want to make sure that the people are, taken care of and they're doing what they need to do to be productive. And if that means they need to be remote or if they need to come in, we'll balance it and figure it out.
Yeah,
anyway,
we'll see.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea, though.
The wrap up, the quote I'll end everybody with was, in the rush to return to normal, use this time to consider which parts of normal are worth rushing back to. I thought that was a really fun quote. That is from Dave Hollis. It's been going around on the socials. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap this up. We are at time for this week. I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you'd like to find out more, bettershow.io is where we have the show notes, The Better Show on the socials. And if you'd like to call into the show, you can do that at 1-971-333-8007. And guys, thanks for joining, and we'll be back next week. And bettershow.io/YouTube if you want to see what this looks like. If you want to see it all happen. All right. For The Better Show, I am Ian Micatel.
I'm Darren Austin.
And I'm Mark Rogers.
See you next week.